So in networking, we have 4 main command line tools. Inclusion of Ipconfig, which definitely shows us how to configure the IP address. We have the traceat as another command line tool, which shows us how to locate the packet path of the IP address. We have the netstart, which shows us how to connect network connection. And the last command line tool is the ping, which enables us to test the connectivity in this particular network. So we are going to learn how each command line tools works. So by the end of this tutorial, this video, you should be able to know how to use Ipconfig, how to use the traceat, how to use the netstart, and how to use the ping command line tools. So let's start with the Ipconfig. So the Ipconfig definitely is a command line tool that is used in Windows only, not Linux, that is used in Windows, that helps us to display and manage the IP address configuration of a computer. So for the Ipconfig, it's mainly used during network troubleshooting, and after using this command line tool, you will be able to confirm the IP address, the subnet mask, the default gateway mask, and whether this particular IP address is static or dynamic. So there are various ways in which this Ipconfig will be applied. So let me start with one procedure or one way on how to use the Ipconfig. So you can either use the PowerShell or the CMD or the command prompt, but for this case let's use the CMD. So you search for CMD, or I always press Windows R, then I search for CMD, enter, then you type the command Ipconfig. Now for this case I can see my IP protocol version 4, subnet mask, protocol version 6, the default gateway mask. So if I want to view all network details, so for this I will be able, for Ipconfig only, I will be able to see the IP version 6, IP version 4, the subnet mask, and the default gateway mask. But if I want to view all the network details, then I will use this command ipconfig space / then all, then you type all. Then enter. So for this case, my second command under IP, I have used Ipconfig then all. So for this case I can be able to view all the network details in this particular network. As you can see here, under the Ethernet we have the so mine it is a dynamic type of IP address. We have the wireless here, we have everything that is in this particular network, various ports and many other things. So another thing that you can add in Ipconfig is to release the current IP address. So how do we apply, or why release the IP address? So it's used maybe when the computer has network issues. So when your computer has a network issue and you use this command, which is ipconfig release, this will disconnect your computer from the network. It means it will disconnect the IP address of your computer. Now, what command do we use? We use ipconfig space /release. So maybe you are using the static IP address, or you are allocating the IP address to this particular machine, but you are unable to configure the IP address well. So for you to release or disconnect this IP, or disconnect this particular computer from the network, we use this command ipconfig release. But for my case, yes, here it is. So no operation performed. No. So for my case, no operation performed because I don't have the Ethernet cable. I'm only using the wireless type of network, and that is the Wi-Fi. Another one. Now this is the one that we can use to renew the IP address. So it is used after the release, after the IP release, or when the IP is not assigned properly to this particular computer. So when you use this command, which is ipconfig /renew, it will request an IP from the DHCP server. This simply means you will have allocated this particular computer with an IP automatically, which is dynamic type of IP address. So we use the command ipconfig space /renew. So again, I'm using the Wi-Fi. I cannot be able, and if at all my machine have not allocated this particular computer of mine with an IP manually. But basically, those are the 4 commands that will be used or can be used under the ipconfig. And the first one, basically, we've said it's ipconfig itself, and the ipconfig definitely will be able to see the IP address of the computer, the subnet mask, the default gateway, and you will be able to know whether this particular machine has been allocated a dynamic or a static type of IP address. And the second command that we've used is the ipconfig space /all. So this type of IP address is if you want to view all the network details of the computer, then you will use this type of command. And the third type of command that we've used under this ipconfig is ipconfig release. So with this, it's used when the computer has network issues. So basically, it's also a way of troubleshooting your computer. And the last, and let's remember that when you use ipconfig, you will disconnect the computer from the network. And the last ipconfig address is ipconfig renew. So it's basically used after the ipconfig release, or when the IP is not assigned properly to this particular computer. And when you use the ipconfig renew, your machine will be able to allocate, or the server will be able to allocate your machine with an IP address that is from the DHCP server, definitely. And that is under the ipconfig as one of the command tools of network configuration. So let's move on to another network configuration on the other video.